Welcome to Season 2 of the official podcast of the Fish Wrapper publication. Our goal is to bring you story content to inspire, encourage, and uplift the soul. It's our hope you find these stories refreshing, thought-provoking, and motivating as you face the challenges of everyday life. So turn us up and tune your ears, and let's get started by jumping right into the story.
Love Until the End. Read by Michael D'Annunzio. The air was bitter cold, yet a bright sun made the ice and snow glisten like diamonds. It was a perfect Sunday for the warmly dressed tourist to view the shimmering mass of solid ice in the gorge below Niagara Falls. For weeks prior to this February day in 1912, huge slabs of ice had swirled down the river, plunged over the falls, and piled up until they made to be what seemed a safe natural bridge about 80 feet thick between the American and Canadian shores. Unaware of impending danger, some 35 visitors walked and slid on the glassy surface. They gaped at the majestic sweep of the falls, the towering snow-covered bluffs on both sides of the gorge, and far down the river they could see the mad rush of Whirlpool Rapids. Being able to walk upon and defy the mighty Niagara, now helpless in the grip of winter, gave the crowd a visceral thrill. Like children at recess, they laughed and threw snow at each other. Suddenly, the huge mass of ice rumbled like a mighty giant awakening. Without warning, big chunks wrenched free from their moorings on both shores. Jolting, grinding, and crackling, the bridge broke into several pieces. What had been a happy scene turned into a horror on ice. Everybody scrambled frantically for the nearest shore. Some managed to jump from one cake of ice to another. Others, fortunate to be a few feet from land, swam to safety. As one huge chunk of ice swung ominously towards midstream, 8 persons trapped on it raced madly for the shore. Shouting that the Canadian side was nearer, William H., a riverman, dashed for that bank. 5 men followed close behind. But Mr. and Mrs. Stanton of Toronto, who were also on that floe, panicked. They ran first for the American side, only to be cut off by an open lane of water. They turned and scrambled toward the Canadian side, but Mrs. Stanton slipped and fell, utterly spent. "I can't go on," she cried. "Let me die here." Stanton tried to lift her, but he too was exhausted and had to call for help. Hearing the call, Burrell Haycock, a 17-year-old lad from Cleveland, Ohio, turned back from certain safety to help the couple. Word of the disaster flashed through the twin border cities, bringing American and Canadian firemen and policemen to the scene. Some gathered on opposite shores of the river with poles and ropes. Others rushed to the 2 bridges below and hung low ropes to the surface. Doctors and nurses stood by with ambulances. Except for emergency vehicles, traffic was at a standstill. Thousands of people lined the towering banks and breathlessly watched the tragedy unfolding below. The chunk of ice bearing the hapless trio began its journey slowly, but as it neared the midstream, it gathered momentum. The Stantons and young Haycock hung on desperately. About a quarter of a mile from Whirlpool Rapids, the floe snapped into 2 pieces, each about 50 feet square. The Stantons on one were carried toward the American shore, where they were whirled at the mercy of the powerful eddy. The floe supporting Haycock was taken downstream by the current. From the cantilever bridge and the upper steel arch bridge, firemen and policemen stood ready with ropes dangling in the wind. As the tossing floe approached the first bridge, Haycock stripped off his coat and leaped for the rope. The crowd cheered wildly as he caught hold, but their enthusiasm was short-lived, for the slack let him fall into the churning river. Haycock, however, was a sturdy youth. He not only held on, but succeeded in lifting himself from the water, hand over hand. Soon he felt the helpful tug from the men on the bridge, about 160 feet above. Slowly, they pulled him up, and the crowd cheered again. But the physical and mental strain had been too much. Haycock had been trapped on the ice for more than an hour, and the cold water had robbed him of reserve strength. His half-frozen hands began to slip. Vainly he tried to wrap his legs around the rope. He even tried to grip it with his teeth. Some of the crowd wept. Others prayed. When he was halfway up, he relaxed his grip and plummeted like a stone into the river. The paralyzed crowd watched as he feebly tried to swim, then vanished in the seething water. Helpless on the eddy-gripped flow, the Stantons watched the grim scene in which their would-be rescuer died. Then, as though the violent Niagara had waited for the first act to be completed before setting the stage for the final tragedy, the whirlpool released its grip and shoved the Stantons' flow into the same course Haycock had taken. As the flow swept under the cantilever bridge, Stanton grasped a rope, twisted it around his wife's waist, and knotted it. The crowds, praying for a miracle, were hushed in agonized suspense. Then the full force of the current pushed Stanton's flow, and the rope snapped. There was one more chance, the second bridge. Stanton got ready to snatch another rope. By now they were nearer Whirlpool Rapids, and the current was faster. As before, Stanton reached for a rope and made it. He was given plenty of slack, and again he hurried to wind the rope around his wife's waist. But his hands were numb. The rush of the flow was strong, and when Stanton realized he could not save his wife, he let the rope go, not for a moment thinking of himself. Beyond all hope now, the man's magnificent courage did not fail. Gently, he raised his wife to her feet. He clasped her in his arms. He kissed her. They embraced for a few moments, and then Mrs. Stanton sank to her knees. Stanton removed his coat, tenderly placed it around her shoulders, knelt, and put his arms around her. Swiftly, the torrent bore husband and wife on its crest. Then, in full view of the stricken crowds, a wave smashed over the flow, and the Stantons vanished beneath an icy froth of angry waters. The end.
We hope you enjoyed this story. We will have another in just a moment. We pause to discuss the sponsor for this episode. If your business isn't using key marketing tools, you could be missing out on valuable opportunities to grow. That's where Little Mountain Printing comes in. They offer powerful marketing solutions like postcard mailers and websites to attract new customers, brochures to showcase your products or services, and promotional products to show appreciation to clients. With the right marketing in place, your business has the best chance to thrive. Get started today by calling Little Mountain Printing at 717-933-8091 or visit them online at littlemountainprinting.com. Now let's return and begin the second story. The Richest Man in Idaho. Author unknown. Read by Stephen Fiddler. During the waning years of the Depression in a small southeastern Idaho community, I used to stop by Mr. Miller's roadside stand for farm fresh produce as the season made it available. Food and money were still extremely scarce, and bartering was used extensively. One particular day, Mr. Miller was bagging some early potatoes for me. I noticed a small boy, delicate of bone and feature, ragged but clean, hungrily appraising a basket of freshly picked green beans. I paid for my potatoes, but was also drawn to the display of fresh green peas. I'm a pushover for green peas and new potatoes, Pondering the peas, I couldn't help overhearing the conversation between Mr. Miller and the ragged boy next to me.
Hello, Barry. How are you today?
Hello, Mr. Miller. Fine, thank you. I was just admiring them peas. They sure look good.
They are good, Barry. How's your ma?
Oh, fine. I'm getting stronger all the time.
Good. Anything I can help with?
No, sir. I'm just admiring them peas.
Would you like to take some home?
No, sir. I got nothing to pay for 'em with.
Well, what have you got to trade me for some of those peas?
All I got's my prize marble here.
Is that right? Well, let me see it.
Here 'tis. Oh, she's a dandy.
I can see that. Only thing is, this one is blue, and I sort of go for red, you see. Do you have a red one like this at home?
Nah, not exactly, but almost.
I'll tell you what. Take this sack of peas home with you, and the next trip this way, let me look at that red marble.
Sure will. Thanks, Mr. Miller.
Mrs. Miller, who had been standing nearby, came over to help me. With a smile, she said,
There are 2 other boys like him in our community. All 3 are very poor. Jim just loves to bargain with them for peas, apples, tomatoes, or whatever. When they come back with their red marbles, and they always do, he decides he doesn't like red after all, and he sends them home with a bag of produce for a green marble, or an orange one, perhaps.
I left the stand smiling to myself, impressed with this man. A short time later I moved to Utah, but I never forgot the story of this man, the boys, and their bartering. Several years went by, each more rapid than the previous one. Just recently I had occasion to visit some old friends in that Idaho community, and while I was there, learned that Mr. Miller had died. They were having his viewing that very evening, and knowing my friends wanted to go, I agreed to accompany them. Upon our arrival at the viewing, we fell into line to meet the relatives of the deceased, and to offer whatever words of comfort we could. Ahead of us in line were 3 young men. All 3 wore nice haircuts, dark suits, and white shirts, very professional looking. They approached Mrs. Miller, standing smiling and composed by her husband's casket. Each of the young men hugged her, kissed her on the cheek, spoke briefly with her, and moved on to the casket. Her misty, light blue eyes followed them as one by one each young man stopped briefly and placed his own warm hand over the cold, pale hand in the casket. Each one left, awkwardly wiping his eyes. Our turn came to meet Mrs. Miller. I told her who I was and mentioned the story she had told me about the marbles. Eyes glistening, she took my hand and led me to the casket.
Those 3 young men had just left were the boys I told you about. They just told me how they appreciated the things that Jim traded them. Now at last, when Jim could not change his mind about the color or size, they came to pay their debt. We've never had a great deal of wealth of this world,
she confided.
But right now, Jim would consider himself the richest man in Idaho.
And with loving gentleness, she lifted the lifeless fingers of her husband. Resting underneath were 3 magnificently shining red marbles. The end. We hope you enjoyed this story and will join us again soon when we unravel another adventure from the pages of The Fish Wrapper. We want to remind you that The Fish Wrapper is available by subscription. Each issue of The Fish Wrapper is jam-packed with story content, amazing recipes, games, jokes, and much, much more. Our readers never want to miss an issue. and you can order yours today by visiting thefishwrapperonline.com or by calling 717-400-FISH. That number again is 717-400-FISH. We encourage you to like and subscribe to this podcast, ensuring that you never miss a new episode. See you again soon, and may our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ guide you.